Welcome to JINSA Snapshot. I'm Michael Makovsky, the President and CEO of JINSA. I'm joined as usual by my distinguished colleague, John Hannah, the Randi Charles Wax Senior Fellow. John, good to see you. Thank you for joining us from Colorado this Friday afternoon, September 19th. All right, why don't we always like to try to focus, if possible, on things that are getting that are important, that are a little less, draw a little less attention in the press. So why don't we talk about Syria? This week it was reported that Israeli Minister of Strategic Affairs, Dermer, also former JINSA Distinguished Fellow, met again with the Syrian Foreign Minister, al-Shaibani, this time in London. I think this is the third time, I think the last two times in Paris. And John, why don't you tell us, what they're working towards here?
Yeah, sure, Mike. First off, I'd say it's just an incredible thing that these conversations negotiations between Israel and Syria are now kind of commonplace. I mean, the last time we had serious direct negotiations between Israel and Syria was a generation ago. And now we're having them almost every month. The main subject is whether or not Israel and Syria can achieve some kind of new security arrangement along that border of the Golan Heights, between that border of Israel and Damascus. Before the Assad regime fell, we were governed by the 1974 Disengagement Agreement that Henry Kissinger negotiated. That collapsed after the Assad regime fell. Israel took a buffer zone inside of Syria that it now is occupying. And obviously, the new Syrian government would like Israel to withdraw. So Israel's right now got enormous leverage inside of Syria. And together with the United States, it's trying to work to see if there's a historic deal that could be had here that would provide Israel the kinds of assurances it needs in southwestern Syria that would allow it to begin removing some of its forces from that border, that buffer zone that it recently took up.
You think, and you just referred to Israel with a lot of leverage. Who do you think's more hungry for a deal right now? Obviously, there's a lot that if there's agreement, the assumption is, I guess, it would usher in a lot more U.S. and other foreign investment. It will help invest the United States more, I guess, in the Sharaa regime. But what do you think? What does Israel have to gain out of this?
Yeah, well, I can tell you, Mike, that in terms of who wants it more, there's no question the Syrian Sharaa badly needs this. He's trying to stabilize that bankrupt regime. He's desperate for foreign investment and the lifting of sanctions. His foreign minister is actually on a historic visit to Washington this week, trying to convince Congress to lift this very crippling sanctions regime under something called the Caesar Act. But in addition to getting sanctions lifted, the one thing Sharaa has publicly said he needs, that's threatening his regime, is Israel's complete and total freedom of action. Israel's conducted something like 900 military actions inside of Syria to destroy the old army of the Assad regime and to clear an air corridor that it used during the 12-day war against Iran over Syria. Sharaa can do nothing about that, obviously. He's got no military counter to Israel's complete freedom to act militarily inside of Syria, which it's done on a very regular basis. It's obviously hugely embarrassing. He sees it as a violation of Syrian sovereignty that he's not able to protect. He obviously is operating in a pretty serious jihadist ecosystem still inside of Syria that are using this, his inability to do anything effectively against Israel to defend Syrian sovereignty. So he badly needs it. Israel much less so, because it's gotten a lot out of its ability to operate in Syria. And first and foremost, I'd say the fact that during that 12-day war, the air corridor it had over Syria and Iraq into Iran, unobstructed, unimpeded, unchallenged by Syria or anybody else, was absolutely essential to the kind of success Israel had in June.
What about the U.S. in all this? You have Tom Barrack, the U.S. ambassador to Turkey, that's acting like a kind of a super envoy here for the region, for that part of the region, Turkey, Lebanon, Syria, so on. And he seems to have been, I think he's, a big backer of Sharaa. Once talks about, I think, more of a unified Syria. Personally, I'm very skeptical that we could put Humpty Dumpty back together again the way it was before the Syrian civil war that began about, was it the beginning of 2011 or the end of 2010?
Yeah.
So what do you think the U.S., what do they want in all this?
Well, I mean, remember back in May on that trip to Riyadh that President Trump took, he surprised everybody when he announced in Saudi Arabia, I'm going to lift all sanctions on Syria. It's kind of a gift to the Crown Prince, as well as to President Erdogan of Turkey, who have been urging me to actually help Syria. And then the next day, he actually had a face-to-face meeting with Sharaa in Riyadh. And I think Tom Barrack took his message from the president that Sharaa is our guy. We're going to go all in on him. We're going to bet that he's the guy who can be the kind of stabilizing force and be a partner of the United States in keeping the Iranians out of Syria, of breaking the Iranian land bridge to Lebanon, of being a partner in helping us fight ISIS. And therefore, I think, unfortunately, has also gone all in on Sharaa's centralizing, authoritarian, Sunni supremacist vision for Syria that is really driving and antagonizing and alienating all of these minority groups that matter in Syria, and some of them are heavily armed, like our Kurdish allies in the fight against ISIS in Syria's northeast, and the Druze and their militias down in Suwaida in southern Syria near the Israeli border. Now, President Trump, I think, wants a security deal between Israel and Syria. I think it will be seen as something historic if he can broker it. But I also think he needs to pay some attention to this question of, if you want to hold Syria together, if you want it to be a good partner, you're going to have to figure out a way to get these minority groups to be part of the state, to be included in the state, to have their rights observed. And I think Tom Barrack has not paid sufficient attention to that. I think the president needs to. I think we need to hold out these Caesar Act sanctions. Don't lift them immediately. Give the Syrians some incentive to come toward the United States vision for if we're going to put this country back together again, it can't be along this centralized dictatorial state that the Assads ran. It's going to have to be a different model.
Yeah, just one last question, and I agree with you, and I wonder how much Barrack, I think you pronounce it Barrack, but I don't know, and those who are paying attention in the administration really fully appreciate the complexity of this problem, the challenge in Syria. One last thing is really just I know you made a reference to it, just about the Kurds, who've been longstanding allies of the United States, certainly in the ISIS fight. They're also historically been more ties with Israel. How do you think, where are they in all this?
I think they're extremely, extremely nervous. Our CENTCOM commander, Brad Cooper, took his wife to Damascus just the last week to meet with Sharaa, with Tom Barrack. I think there's some worry on the Kurds' part that they're going to be abandoned here and left to the tender mercies of Sharaa and his centralizing vision. He's got a lot of Sunnis. Sunnis make up about 70% of Syria, so he's potentially got a lot of jihadi kind of fighters with him, together with the Turks, who want to keep the Kurds of Syria down. So I think it's an additional reason why the United States, as much as it wants a stable Syria that's a partner in counterterrorism and fighting Iran, you're not going to get that stable partner unless you figure out some kind of accommodation in Syria between the central government and these minorities having their legitimate rights. We got to focus a little bit on that in Washington.
They were, the Kurds have been, they were one of the biggest losers in the post-World War I settlement. They're spread out over 4 countries there, and it seems like they constantly become, they're often casualties in these kind of arrangements. But I hope that's not the case here. So look, why don't we conclude? Thank you very much for sharing that, John. I want to thank everybody for joining. I want to say for those who are observing the Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, which begins next Monday night, I want to wish them a happy and healthy New Year. And John, I wish you a good, safe trip back. We look forward to seeing you.
Happy New Year, Mike.
All right, happy. Thanks a lot, John. You too.